film. I make these things, I call them low-budget films. Is this coming through? Is that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't have a monitor here, so I can't really hear it, but it's okay because I can't really see anybody out there either, so it's sort of like a sensory deprivation. But I have the sense of smell. I can smell pizza, so that's important. I don't need to hear myself. I don't need to see you guys necessarily, but as long as I can smell pizza,
life is good.
Life is good. Here's a documentary film about the French Revolution. I like to dedicate this to the spirit of Occupy Wall Street because I feel like the French Revolution is like the first Occupy movement, essentially. The King of France was absolute, the people all were destitute. The year was 1789. Churches paid no income tax, neither did aristocrats, and wars were costing money all the time. But Enlightenment ideas had entered people's ears, like liberty, equality, and brotherhood. People starving broke under feudalism's yoke, knew no church or king was gonna do them any good. There was such financial crisis, the king had to take advice to try an old thing called a States General government. The Estates General have 3 votes, nobles, church, and common folks. So 2-to-1 the commons lose, it always went. The commons in frustration said, we represent the nation. The nobles and the church must lose their privileges. And the rich were scared for real when they stormed to the Bastille. And rebellions also broke out in the villages. At the palace in Versailles, the king and queen were heard to sigh. I guess we have to let them make a constitution now. Then the women's march embarrassed them and chased them into Paris. And the royals learned they'd lost their power anyhow. Arguments got hot, whether to keep a king or not. Different groups saw different ways to run the country best. But when the royal family tried to flee the country in disguise, they were busted and then put under a house arrest. And all of Europe's kings were terrified to hear these things. So France was threatened on all sides by enemies. And when these other kings declared the king of France had to be spared, that made the king of France look worse to revolutionaries. They built a new machine, the quick and painless guillotine. They said, it's fairer than the king's medieval torture rack. And they put it to a vote, then they dropped it on his throat. And every king across the world just had a heart attack. So they attacked from north and south, and they attacked from east and west, till revolutionary France was in a desperate state. And when the radical Marat was killed politically, now that was what it took for France's outlook to degenerate. The new leader, Robespierre, said enemies are everywhere. So for a year the guillotine was working endlessly. And though he freed the slaves as true, Robespierre's head came off too. So France was run by the more moderate Directory. But the Directory was lame, and France's only good news came from their armies out in Europe, winning more and more. And the man who made them was General Napoleon.